Yay!
Loud and clear. How's everybody?
We're doing great. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be there.
Brilliant. You're on a lovely big screen behind us. We don't really want to say anything. We want to hear from you. So first questions first. Where are you and what are you doing?
Okay, so it's morning in Houston, and at the moment I'm training here on a 6-week stint, and actually the great thing at the moment is I'm here with my crewmates, my Soyuz crewmates, Tim Kopra, who's a NASA astronaut, and Yuri Malenchenko, who's a Russian cosmonaut. And so the three of us are training together, doing emergency simulations, learning more about spacewalks, and more about the USOS segment of the space station, which is basically the American laboratory, the European laboratory, and the Japanese laboratory. But honestly, from every day is so different. Each day brings new challenges and exciting new things to learn. It might vary from being in the neutral buoyancy laboratory here at the Johnson Space Center, where we go underwater for 6 hours in a spacesuit, a pressurized spacesuit, and we practice our spacewalking, and doing suturing and tooth removal and emergency medical dental practices, those kind of activities, to then the next day learning about how to deal with fire or depressurization on board the space station. So there are many different activities that need to be done, and of course learning about life sciences and all the scientific payloads that we're going to be using as well. So these lessons just all get scheduled in, so it's a brilliant training program, and certainly room for getting bored.
What's the most unusual thing you've been asked to do, and do you know why?
The most unusual thing. There have been several. I mean, it was quite a surprise last week learning about how to do fillings and crowns. I never realised that would be part of my astronaut training. But of course, it stands to reason. You know, there's no doctor up there with us. There's no dentist. There's no plumber. There's no IT expert. So we're the ones who have to do all of those activities. So I think actually probably removing someone's tooth is about the most unusual thing I've been asked to do, or to at least practice it. I've not actually done it on a live volunteering yet. I have not had to do it on station.
Your background is obviously as being a test pilot. Do you find it, is it difficult? Is the training difficult? Are you finding it difficult?
You know, the training is so good. It's a well-oiled program. I mean, the space station's been in operation since '98, and we've had astronauts and cosmonauts on board since 2000. It's been permanently occupied. So by now, the space agencies are so good at this program that we go through a 2.5-year flow from assignment to launch, and they cover absolutely everything. And the pace of the training is good as well. Obviously now it's starting to ramp up. I'm just over a year away from launch, so the pressure is on and the schedule gets more intense. But as far as the training is concerned, we've got a great support team everywhere, in Japan, in Canada, in Europe, and here in the States. And the training is fantastic. They make sure that we know absolutely everything we have to know about all the systems. Plus the fact, of course, we're not alone on board the space station. We've got great communication links, both voice and video and teleconferencing. So we've always got that kind of support from the ground if we need a little bit of extra help or a little bit of extra training on board the space station as well.
I was told by Libby that you're actually not going to be in the UK, or you'll be in the UK for about 2 weeks between now and when you get back down. Is it hard to be away from home so long, or at least the time not to be your own?
You know, it is hard, and I mean, ever since I joined the European Space Agency in 2009, I've been permanently based in Germany, and then last year I based myself here in Houston, just because so much of my training is over here in Houston. So unfortunately, I haven't spent much time in the UK for several years now. So it's really, you know, valuable to get back and see friends and family and keep up those ties. I always love coming back to the UK, of course, and after the mission, there is definitely much more time set aside to be able to get back to the UK and to be able to share this mission with everybody back there. But of course, no, I do miss friends and family, and also I spend a lot of time traveling away from my own family. Probably about at least 50%, if not 60% of the time is away. But I've still got close ties to the military, and many of my friends are off doing 6-month tours to Afghanistan at regular intervals, or were doing until recently. So, life as an astronaut is not as bad as people that make out with regards to the travel. There are certainly other careers that are just as bad.
May I pass over to some questions from our lovely, very keen, excited audience?
Of course.
Introduce Jenny Shipway, the current president of BAP as well.
Where do I stand?
Hello, Jenny.
I'm going to crouch here and read you the first question, which they couldn't be here today, but they sent it. This is from the Southbound Planetarium from your hometown in Chichester. And they ask, we have a large number of children and young adults visiting the planetarium. They are always very excited and interested in the subjects of astronomy and space exploration. What message of encouragement could we pass on to them from you?
Message of encouragement, gosh. I think I like to tell people that, absolutely anything is possible, and to follow your dreams and follow what you want to do. And it may sound a bit cheesy, but my path to becoming an astronaut was certainly not a conventional one. And people are often interested to find I left school at the age of 18 with 3 very average A-levels, and decided to join the army to become a pilot. And I picked up my academic studies later in life and completed a Bachelor of Science when I was 33 years old. And so that is not a very conventional route. People often think you have to stay in academia, get a degree, get a master's, get a doctorate, etc., or be a scientist. So there are many different routes to becoming an astronaut, and any one of those can, I've got my colleagues who've been engineers, who've been doctors, who are school teachers, and I'm working alongside them.
Is anyone using one?
Everyone go to aeroplane.
It was something that I was really interested in doing, and that's the most important message that they can give to the school. Whatever you're in, whatever you're passionate about, tends to be what you're good at as well. So I would say follow your dreams, and anything is possible.
Excellent, we'll pass that on to them. We also got some questions from the room, so various people are going to pop up here and ask you questions. And first of whom will be Ben Brown from the Exploradome Mobile Planetarium. We're based in Bristol. So, Ben.
Ooh, do I get to come up here?
It's very exciting. Tim, I would love to ask Hello. I present planetarium shows in Bristol, and we'd love to know, people describe the feeling of being in space as zero-G, microgravity, free fall, weightlessness. How would you describe it to a 10-year-old, and what do you think it's going to feel like?
How to describe it to a 10-year-old? Well, I've only experienced it in the back of an Airbus 300 for about 3.5 hours. So I've done it several times now when we go up and
vomit comet.
Parabolic. 10-year-old microgravity is probably not a very exciting word. So I think free falling actually fits more accurately what we're doing. It's not escaping we are obviously inside a pressurized capsule that's keeping us alive. So I think that's the best way to describe it, is we're just going fast enough that we're actually not crashing back into the planet Earth. We're staying in orbit. In terms of the feeling, the first time I went in the back of this Airbus into sort of gravity, it was a very liberating feeling. It was impossible not to laugh and smile. I was there with my other 5 colleagues at the time who were where we all joined the European Space Agency together. Feeling feels very natural, it feels very comfortable, and of course your body is it doesn't feel any pressure points, all fluids just becomes equal, it shifts. Obviously in the short duration we didn't get full fluid shift like the astronauts experience on board the space station, but you can certainly feel all the pressure is relieved from your body, if you like, and it's a very comfortable situation to be in. I've spoken to many astronauts who say once they get used to sleeping on board the space station, it's absolutely the best sleep the best quality sleep you could possibly get. There's no tossing and turning, there's no pressure point, it's just wonderful, comfortable sleep. So yeah, I think the way to describe it is free falling and a wonderful natural feeling.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from Becky Simpson. He's from the National Space Centre in Leicester.
Hi Tim, what message would you personally like us to be talking about with our visitors?
Sorry, could you say that again? I missed that.
What message would you personally like us to be talking about with our visitors? So to the science centres and everything.
Yeah, the message I'm trying to get across really to young kids mainly is to try and get them interested in science, technology and engineering, and trying to find as many different ways of doing that as possible. We're trying to engage people who wouldn't normally perhaps be exposed to this or be thinking about it by, for example, using the Space Dinners competition, where we're getting kids to, who are interested in food and cooking and nutrition, we're getting them to design a meal for me, which is going to actually be flown up on board the space station. I've also got several plans to get kids who are interested in music to actually get involved with my mission as well. Excuse me, sir. That is Oliver. he's my 2-year-old. I apologise.
Bring him in.
Yeah, so my message really is to try and engage these kids, and something else we're doing is people who are involved in music, and we're going to get them to have playlists on board the space station. So whatever people's passion is and whatever activities they're involved in anyway, trying to tie in somehow to exposing them to new technology, to science, to the activities we're doing on board the space station, and just to get them thinking about that. And if it's something that that they can subsequently take up, then that's fantastic. That's a great way, a great hook of getting them involved in these important subjects.
Thank you. Our next question is from North Wales. We're going to introduce Mark Watson from Technicast Glyndŵr.
Hi Tim.
Hello, Mark.
So your story is going to have quite a unique perspective, and with today's social media, are you going to be able to, and do you intend to tweet all of your experiences and feelings when you're on the launch pad, when you're to get into space, when you do your space walks? You said you've got good communication, but will it be that good?
Yeah. Not quite from inside the sorry, it's not quite that good. But yes, absolutely. I'll be tweeting, up until launch day, and as soon as I get on board the space station as well. The communications on the station are great. They're getting better. I'm being briefed right now that even in a year's time, when I'm on board, we're going to have faster connectivity. We've already got live email, live Twitter, and we're moving towards fully live internet access as well. There's Wi-Fi throughout the space station, so we really do have some great methods of reaching out and keeping in touch with people. So really, yes to all the above. Yeah, I'll be doing absolutely as much as I can with regards to tweeting and Facebook and photographs and engaging with people and sharing this wonderful experience with everybody back on Earth.
Thank you. We've got just 2 more questions, if that's okay. Our next question is from Scotland, where Becky's still with us today.
Yes.
To discuss. We have Katie Mould from the Glasgow Science Centre.
Hello, Katie.
Hi Tim. What I wanted to know is, obviously you've been upskilled quite dramatically in a number of areas, including dentistry, as part of your training programme. But how does the programme prepare you psychologically for going up to the ISS, and how do they support you during that massive emotional upheaval?
Yeah, the programme does several things. You may have heard that in Europe we run something called a caves course, where I've already spent 7 nights living down a cave in Sardinia with 5 other astronauts, including Japanese, Canadian, Russian and European astronauts, and experienced NASA astronauts as well. So, and I've also spent 12 days living underwater on what was NASA's NEMO mission. So just to talk a little bit about those two subjects, they're kind of called space analogs, and they do slightly different things. On NEMO, NASA's Extreme Environments Exploration project, we were researching landing on an asteroid, which is NASA's next step in human exploration. So by going down off the coast of Florida and living underwater, we can use that water as neutral buoyancy, but on a much larger scale than we do in the swimming pool here at the space station. So we were working with deep worker submersibles, which were simulating space exploration vehicles. We were using astronaut foot plates and had these worker submersibles driving us around. We're trying out all sorts of different tools and techniques and procedures of how we're going to accomplish this asteroid capture mission, which is coming up in the early 2020s. Now, if you think about zero gravity in the space station, it was obviously designed for astronauts to go outside and do spacewalk. So it's got lots of handholds, it's got toolboxes outside, everything is set up for spacewalking. On an asteroid, you've got a real challenge, because the size of asteroid that NASA are looking at going to has got such a low gravity field that you're basically going to be free floating around it. And there are ideas of capturing this asteroid using a lasso, for want of a better description, and then that cable as a starting point for your translation paths, or using jetpacks, or using space exploration vehicles. So this 12 days under the water was fantastic. We were diving twice a day. We were trying out all these new tools and techniques and procedures for NASA. But at the same time, we were running it as if it was a real space mission. And that certainly helps to provide some of that psychological support that you kind of touched on there. We had a 50-second communication delay with the ground because we were simulating the longer distances that we'll be using to do the asteroid mission. And that meant, of course, limited connectivity with friends and with family and with mission control even. We were quite autonomous and working in an international environment as well. They also put us through our paces with a couple of emergency scenarios, some medical emergencies and some technical emergencies, and all that kind of stuff. And this really does help to prepare you. Obviously, there's also there was a real threat to be completely saturated with nitrogen after just a few hours under the water. And therefore, we had no easy option to surface. We had to go through 17 hours of decompression. So we were in an environment where there was a slightly elevated threat, and there was an elevated element of isolation. And that's the same for the caves as well, the 7-day down a cave in Sardinia. It wasn't a sort of tourist cave by any stretch. We're talking about very technical caves with lots of vertical ascent and descent. It takes 8 hours just to get to the initial campsite. And then we were doing true exploration in these caves, doing a lot of cave photography and a lot of scientific research as well, taking microbial samples, for example. This is also the kind of activities that we have to do on board the space station, but once again, doing it in this very international environment. And you get to learn a lot about yourself, and you get to learn a lot about other people. The great thing about the cave is it's a very easy environment to place stress on somebody. For example, all you need to do is take away everybody's watches, and you have lost complete sense of day and night. You can let people sleep for 2 hours, wake them up and tell them they've had a good 8 hours sleep, and you can end up by people thinking they've been down a cave for perhaps 5 days when they've been down for 10, or 10 days when they've been down for 5. You can really mess people about. And what that does by introducing these additional stresses is it obviously changes the way you perform, and you get to understand more about how you perform under pressure and how other people perform under pressure and how you can sort of compensate for that. So there are some great ways that the training program puts us through our paces and gives us exposure to these kind of psychological elements and some of the challenges that we might find on board the space station. And an interesting fact is, when I get on board the space station, Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko will be there, and they'll be finishing off the last 4 months of their 1-year stay. So I'm really interested to be working with them on board the space station and to see, how life is like for them, having spent a whole year up there.
Thank you very much. One more question, and this time from the other end of the country. We're going to go to deepest, darkest Devon and Simon Auld from the Space Odyssey Mobile Planetarium.
Hi there, Tim. Just looking back to when you were young, I was wondering if there was an experience before you joined the British Army to go up into to go up into the air and maybe had dreams of going up into space. Wasn't there an experience you had as a child, or a person you met, or a quote you heard that really inspired you to go to the skies and ultimately beyond?
Do you know, there's been a couple of really inspirational people in my life. Probably one of the first was my chemistry teacher at school. And it wasn't actually anything really to do with becoming an astronaut or going off into the stars, but he was also the leader of our combined cadet force at Chichester High School. And that had a huge impact on me from the age of 13 through till 18. Really, that was my main activity, extracurricular activity, if you like, was being involved in the cadets, going off for adventure training, outward bound, and I just absolutely thoroughly enjoyed all the kind of activities that exposed me to. And so, you know, looking back on that, I'm just so grateful for people like that who, school teachers who dedicate over and above their normal job, they dedicate themselves to these extra activities which are helping to inspire and educate children in areas outside of just the standard sort of academic subjects. So certainly for me that was a real impact. And also when I was 18 years old, I went on an Operation Rally expedition for about 4 months to Alaska. And I had a kayaking instructor during that period as well, who was a very inspirational character. He had done an awful lot throughout his life. He'd been an instructor in the parachute regiment, and he basically, you know, had some wonderful stories and was also just a very talented guy who was able to connect with teenage kids and be able to try and really inspire them into getting involved in things that they might like to do later in life. So it's interesting because neither of those characters had anything to do with space or the stars or exploration, but in terms of actually inspiring me to try and understand what it was that I wanted to do and to have the confidence to go forward and do that, they were very important indeed. So that kind of comes back to where, you know, I think it's more about connecting with the kids and trying to give them that inspiration and that confidence that they can do whatever it is that they want to do. That's what's really important.
Thank you so much for answering all our questions. I'll bring Sharon back in as well.
It's obvious that you think of it as an important use of your time to spend the time talking to us. I know everyone here is going to take this experience with them and hopefully inspire hundreds of thousands of children in joining you with your adventure, and hopefully they'll also be inspired to reach for the stars as well. Who knows? So thank you so much.
I certainly hope so. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this afternoon for you guys. And thank you very much for all the work that you do. You know, I remember visiting Planetarium not just in my training, in fact, but also as a kid as well. And it's a wonderful way of reaching out and inspiring young children to get involved in things that they love and giving them an insight into something that they've probably never seen before as well. It must be a wonderful experience for you guys to witness that as well.
Yeah, and we're going to use that as a quote.
Please do.
Thank you, Tim. Oh, I cut him off!
Very successful 10-minute Skype call that actually kept him for 20 minutes.
Can we have a grab paper?